Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Love, Growth, and Freedom with AJ and Duarte, and this is the final episode of this season, and I'm so happy that you guys are here, okay? Because it's been a long journey with y'all, and we've been talking about mistakes for the whole of this season, how we're all allowed to make mistakes, that we shall not be afraid of making mistakes, that the best lessons we learn are from mistakes, and how to deal with future mistakes that we are gonna make. Now, on this final episode that I'm gonna do for you is that we are gonna talk about how to deal with all these mistakes, outwardly mistakes that people. How do we deal with people who have wronged us, who has done mistakes towards us? So, I guess this is the best way to culminate everything that we've learned about mistakes. Now that we understand the nature, now that we understand that we all make mistakes, that we are always going to make mistakes, and that along the way in our lives, we will be, offending other people that we don't know and how, but we will. So it's okay. So in this episode, would like to help us deal with mistakes outwardly, and especially to those people who have wronged us. It doesn't mean that it's normal to make mistakes; it's that we tolerate it and allow people to keep repeating it towards us. This will help us voice out our grievances and educate people in their actions and hold them accountable, but still with a kind and compassionate heart because we know how it's like. So now this is like basically just done looking at the mirror and understanding our mistakes, that we are all gonna make them, and we're all gonna have a moment in our lives where, okay, I've made a mistake, now I have to deal with it. Now, what we have to do when people have done us wrong, people will disappoint us, people will do us wrong, they'll do us dirty. That's so true because, again, we're not perfect, and the people around us are also not perfect. Now, the first thing that we have to note down when people make mistakes towards us, when they make a mistake to offend us, when they make a mistake to whatever, the things we have to understand is that, yeah, sometimes they don't know how they're acting or they don't know what they did wrong. And a lot of us, I think, have experienced that, and a lot of people will still experience that because people are very selfish in the sense that they only always think, or almost always think, about themselves and their circumstances going on in a situation. And you have to be someone, since you know that these mistakes are things that we can't control and that sometimes it will happen. Now that you know, it's your duty to actually be a bigger person to see if this was something that they did intentionally. So, the first thing that you have to note down when people, or one of the persons that you've cared for, your friends, your family, or ever, has wronged you, you have to think about their intention. Was it deliberate or not? You have to analyze it with yourself, that this mistake that was done to you, was it deliberate? Was it something that they really did on purpose? They knew about it, they didn't want to tell you anything, or they didn't really care about how you felt. If that was deliberate and that was the intention of like trying to really hurt you, I think that's where I'd tell you to go off. Go off now. Like, defend yourself, fight, or do something about it. For people who hurt us, is we have to figure out if it's on purpose and deliberate. We have to figure out also in our end, we have to judge the situation. Was it something that they really did? Because like they really want to hurt me? Was it that something? Were they really out to hurt us, the people, or was it an unprecedented case or an isolated case? For example, no, I'll give you an example. I am a gay person and I have long hair. And we wear face masks and we wear face shields. So a lot of people will confuse me for a woman. I don't identify as he or she. I can be they or them, he, him, they, them. I don't really mind. I feel like I'm non-binary, so I don't really adhere to being a man or a woman, but I know that I'm attracted to men. So gay, non-binary. There you go. But with all that, some people will call me ma'am, misgender me, and when I look at it, I could go off and be like, "You're misgendering me. You're whatever. You're not respecting my pronouns. You're not respecting who I am." I could go off like that, but seeing from the situation and their circumstances, a lot of people become confused about it, and some are not really educated about so GSC. So, do you really have to go off with someone who just did this mistake because they didn't really know better? Instead of just hating on reacting to it badly, you can educate and tell them, oh, correct them politely and say, no, I'm a he, him, I'm a sir, or I am a they, them, I'm a mix, whatever your pronouns are. Um, you can just slightly correct them. So I think the most important part when somebody has wronged us, you have to actually reel it in, look at the situation in a bigger perspective and see, was it intentional? Was it out to get me? And what are the things that I should do to react to this? You have to question yourself and your feelings, because sometimes we react on feelings and we end up losing people more and hurting other people without really intending to do the same thing. You know what I mean? So now try to gauge the relationship. Once you're done identifying if it was something that was deliberate or was it an isolated case, try to gauge your relationship. Is it worth your energy in dealing and saving this one? If this person was an isolated case idea incident and they offended you accidentally, an isolated case, you're like, okay, you can let them pass for this one. You can just specifically say, I didn't like and appreciate what you said. I hope that it doesn't happen again, and we can go about our lives without actually ever thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like, without, this is gonna be nothing that I'm gonna hold against you, but please don't do it again. If you say that, if you are able to communicate yourself that way, it becomes easier for you to actually be with other people and live a very communicative and chill, peaceful life. Now, gauge your relationship. If the person who has wronged you is someone worth your energy, do we have to be bothered by these people who try to hurt us? Now, for example, if they are haters and if they are like trolls on the internet and hates on you, do you really want to waste your energy on that? Because first, the intention was deliberately to hurt you. Now, second, do you think they deserve an ounce of your energy reacting to that? Because if not, well, then don't give them the energy. Don't give them the satisfaction of you being affected by that. It's hard, easier said than done. But if you practice it and practice and practice it, being unbothered by people who deliberately tries to hurt you and really don't weigh in your life, uh, it's easier to live without worrying about how they think about you, Because sometimes, maybe they're just passing, and the best way to deal with it is cut them off. There's a lot of people in our lives also who would want to be in our lives, but they don't know how to deal with it. They will make the same mistakes. Now we have to see the intention. Now we have to see if it's an isolated case, they're not really so close. I think that you don't really have to make a big fuss out of it. But you have to have your boundaries. When they overstep your boundaries, that's when you go off. So that's what's important. We can talk about setting boundaries on our next season, I think. Let's see about that, how I want to go about. But it's still in the air. We'll have to clear it out. But all I could say is that that's when your boundaries step in. If you have a good boundary for yourself and people who gets into your sphere of energy, that's where you kind of want to have to waste your energy. Not waste, but expend your energy on them. That's what you have to think about, no? You have to think about the intention, the gauge of their relationship, and now, if it's worth saving. If the relationship is worth saving, if this is a friend of yours, they made a mistake, and they're truly sorry for it, let them air out what they thought was they doing, what went wrong. Try to help them process what was their mistake, and also air out what you felt while asking them for an explanation. Because if the relationship is dear to you, ask for their side and try to know how they see the situation. It's better to just ask, why did you do it? Like, what was going through your mind? What was going through your head while you did this thing? And I want to know genuinely, so that I would have a sound judgment of how I want to go about this, because I don't want to cut you off. If that relationship is worth saving, you kind of have to air out how you felt about it. You can say you are disappointed, you are saddened, you are hurt, you are offended. Use words to define how you felt. It may be hard, it will be, but it takes practice. But this is the 3 ways that I can help you out when somebody has wronged you. These are the 3 things that you could think about when you take a step back and look. Was it deliberate or not? I will repeat the tips. Now gauge if the relationship is worth expending an energy on, or lastly, if it's worth saving. Now, if it's worth saving, go. Ask for an explanation, and then air out what you felt. Or air out what you felt and ask for an explanation. And then that's where you'll see na probably it was a mistake. If it was deliberate, you'd realize, and then you'd have a firmer decision of cutting that person off. Now, if it wasn't, and if it's an isolated case, you just was able to save a relationship rather than sabotage it and ruin it with not being able to forgive. Because, now that you know that mistakes are a part of our lives, I think being able to be compassionate and kind towards people who make mistakes towards you as well is supposed to be like a growth, an evolution of knowing what mistakes are for you. Okay. Now, an honest mistake done by the people you love. There are a lot of the mistakes that happen with people that you love and all the likes is that it is an honest mistake. It's usually not on purpose, comes from a place of concern and love. And you have to see that, yeah, maybe these people really just make mistakes. And you have to understand that sometimes it just comes from a place of love, and somehow need to understand it more, because it, it really is just from that concern. And if you know that it came from a place of love and concern, this is usually applicable to parents, to relatives, to whatever, even if they're not toxic, it's actually any relationship and people that you love. They would actually say some things and make mistakes. They actually do a lot of the wrong things for the right reasons, but that doesn't excuse them for how they did it. So understand that sometimes it is an honest mistake. And then if it is, again, do the saving technique. Air out what you felt, ask for an explanation. You have to see if the damage done is something you could forgive and work around. You have to see, this also happens in marital relationships, in people who are, cheaters, something like that. If they are, if you can really forgive it, that's something that you could think about. But if you can't, you really also have to understand yourself on that. But if people do things because of the right intentions, it doesn't excuse what they did wrong, but it at least gives them that chance, that benefit of the doubt, that maybe you would not repeat this mistake again. So if you really do, you have to understand that too. Lead them to the right path. Lead them right. Since now that you've understood that maybe it came from a place of love, and you want to say, okay, uh, I don't necessarily forgive you, but I don't hold any grudge towards you. That's a good thing to say. If you're still really mad about it, it's okay. Because lead them to the right path. Once you've made known that they made a mistake towards you, they would actually feel that pangs of, oh, I did a major thing. I effed it up, and I need to, it's either repent or I need to actually change for the better because of what I did. And they have to be aware that there will be consequences with the things that they did, even if it came from a place of love. So lead them to the right path. And if you want, again, forgiveness is something you give. It's not something that they demand, and it's up to you when you can forgive the person. And also, forgiving them doesn't necessarily mean allowing them back in the same space so quickly. You can allow them to earn it again, especially if trust was broken. So when you forgive someone, it's not automatically, oh, we're okay. You're back in the same space that you were. They probably took a few steps back, and they have to earn your trust again if it was something like that. If they lied to you, if whatever, or if they hurt you, really, you kind of have to keep them afar first until you ease into it. It's up to you. It's basically your way of saying, I forgive you, but it doesn't mean that we're going to be okay, A-okay, as quickly as possible. I have been hurt, and that is valid up until now, and you have to respect that. And yeah, if that person is understanding and really got the communication, they will be okay with what you said. Okay? Now, here. Set your boundaries and limits. Keep your space. So this is our last point, but before we get into that, again, don't forget that this podcast is powered by in partnership with Guerilla Podcast Syndicate. And if you want to listen to me more of like short blasted contents, you can look at my TikTok, Fresh FM Adrian, on my Instagram for roller skating content as well. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And wow, I am a very talkative person, and I've realized I've been talking the whole way through. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate you listening to me on this final episode, and I hope that this brightens up your day and understand that people will make mistakes towards you, but these are the things that you can do to, be able to keep an open mind and see how to deal with these mistakes that they've done towards you. Now, keep your space, set your boundaries and limits. Keep your space sacred. Allow people to have enough space to learn from their mistakes, but don't let them take over your space. Deal with it with an open mind but stern approach. Again, if you know your limits, you know when people need to stop stepping on you, you get to tell them, wait a minute, this is where you stop. This is where I won't allow you to take over this, and this is where I will say that you've hurt me and that you have to respect the space that I have right now. Now that even if I forgive you, I still feel the pain. Let me heal on my own. Let me grieve that old version of you. There's so many things that you can say and actually do to set your boundaries and limits. And you have to go through knowing, in all this, a prerequisite to know is that you have to know what your boundaries are. The most important thing is you have to know your boundaries are. What do you find upsetting? What do you find unforgivable? What are your non-negotiables? If you all know this, you get to tell people off that, okay, this is not something that I appreciate. If you still continue doing this, I probably won't be around you as much as you think. You really have to keep it open. I've done this a lot of times in my life, if I were to be honest. I am able to segregate the things that I do. And I always am able to cut people off when I need to, especially when they're taking over my life and like, oh, you're really overstepping your bounds in my life, and I really like don't appreciate it. You feel like you run my life and all the likes. I really cut them off. I really say it. I say, nah, I don't want to be with around your energy and all the likes. I did that with my. So this was I'll tell you a story. This was a cool story of my old college best friend. I had two college best friends, and then my first college best friend, we were together for a good first few of the terms. We were young, we were dangerous. She was very, very exciting. She wanted the thrill, and she was in a phase where she was figuring out herself, and we just didn't agree on how we would go on about our lives and figuring ourselves together. And I really gave it to her. I gave her an ultimatum and be like, you know what, if you're not gonna do this, I don't think we should be friends anymore. I really told her that I'm not gonna support you with whatever you're gonna do. I am trying to remind you that you have to follow through this, you have to whatever. And she didn't, and then we fell apart. We never talked anymore. Not until 3 years after graduation. No, 2 years after graduation, we were together in a shoot and content creation. She's grown so much. And all we both could have said to each other, we're just like, okay, well, I'm proud of what we've become. Even if we weren't in our lives as frequent as we were before, or we had a falling out, we acknowledged the existence of each other in our lives, and that we kind of like push each other to become who we are today. And we were glad to actually reconnect in a situation, in a space where we both grew and we both understood that we did each other wrong, and we acknowledge and appreciate the growth that we've had within ourselves, and it's really good. So really, I don't really hold a grudge forever. It's just I really choose the people I let in the circle and the boundaries that I have. And right now we're still in the same space, a far off space with each other, but we now have this mutual respect and root for each other again after the falling out. So it really is. The universe is a funny place where you kind of like have this, but again, never apologize for having boundaries, and never apologize for stepping up for yourself when people have wronged you. And this is a perfect episode for that, because I think a lot of people become so afraid of losing people in relationships and all the likes, and then they lose themselves. You know what I mean? And it's difficult to lose yourselves just because you want to keep a relationship going. Yeah? All right. And I think that concludes our discussion in our season together. And I couldn't thank all of you enough for being here. Thank you so much. I am very, very grateful, because I never thought that I'd have people listening to me. I never thought that my thoughts would actually matter to a lot of people. And thank you so much for making me feel loved, respected, and worthy of so many, respect and listens. And I really appreciate it. I will continue my best to deliver through my promises and all this. And I wish to see you again on our next season. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful ride. Sending you some love. This is 80. Mwah, mwah, chip, chip.